You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Listening to the Bells of Liberty podcast, where freedom rings and the sassiness stings. Stay tuned for a little bit of sassy freedom. Hello and welcome back to the Bells of Liberty on Lanterns Radio Network. I'm Jana, here with Sammy and Courtney.
Hey! Hi!
The silence was deafening. I was looking up just to see if anybody was waving. I'm like, that doesn't work, guys. They can't see you. So, anyway, tonight we have a full load of news stories to talk about, and it's all a little eye-roll inducing. If you were wondering if the Earth is warming or cooling, we still don't know. But don't worry, progressives will tell you it's warming or cooling, and we're going to die regardless, so hang in there. Also, if you thought your child's school stopped monitoring them once they were dismissed, you'd be wrong, and their social media isn't safe. Sammy will keep plugging along on Article 1, Section 10 for tonight's constitutorial, and we'll wrap it all up with everyone's favorite, Ring the Bell. So, Courtney, what's settled in the science of climate change?
Oh, you know, that's my favorite phrase ever, the science is settled. And I have an answer for you. Do we have global warming or global cooling? And the answer is yes. So there we go. Now, there's an article that just came out. The Daily Caller just published it, and it was talking about how the Arctic water absorbs the CO2 at a rate of 230 times greater than the methane, warming from the methane. And this is completely surprising to them. So it's actually having a cooling effect, and it actually challenges previous findings and reverses all these other previous findings. They're thinking that the methane was getting trapped in there, and it was causing all this warming. And
so basically, cow farts are not warming the earth, like they said, or
yeah, yes. If they fart by the ice, maybe? I don't know. No,
I feel like the simple enough term for this is weather. This is just what the earth does.
It's a little more than weather. It's a little more than weather. I'll give them that. Like, just try and play devil's advocate a little bit here. It is more than weather, but it's the frustrating thing for me is that there's no reason for alarmists. There's no reason for people to make money off of being an alarmist in this area, because this has happened so much. Global warming, global cooling, it's all very nice cycle. It's like we have our immediate weather patterns, and then we kind of have our long-term Earth weather patterns, which is the climate. And it's really interesting, and I do feel like every time we get some sort of like big snowstorm, everybody freaks out and thinks, you know, oh no, this is something having to do with climate change, when it's actually just not. So
I don't understand how we can have a history of the Earth going through cycles of being warm or being cold, where we know we've had ice ages and we've warmed and we've had ice ages, and yet all of a sudden now that might be happening because there are people, suddenly that's not something that could happen because there are people, unless it's the people causing it.
Right. And actually, I was looking at another article from the Federalist, and they were saying, and this is kind of interesting, said, even if the United States immediately eliminated all its carbon dioxide emissions, it would only reduce the global warming by 0.08 degrees Celsius by 2050.
So sorry, I just wanted to put in, so in Denmark, they just came out with a study that the Earth has not warmed in 19 years.
Yeah.
So, and even people who are on the right who will say, okay, the Earth's warmed a little, it's 0.03% of a degree. So
of a degree.
Of a single degree.
That's so ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
The other thing that in this, they're talking about, like, if we stopped all carbon dioxide emissions, the author of the article that I was reading here is like, it make it a little bit awkward because humans exhale carbon dioxide. So basically, the only way to save the planet is for us all to just kill ourselves immediately.
Okay, but that's why God invented trees.
I know, right?
Okay, so I feel like there was a
Arctic
plan.
Ice. Apparently, that's why God invented Arctic ice too, because it's doing a fantastic job of eliminating methane gas and cooling the Earth.
Well, my grandma was convinced that because everyone's cutting down all the trees, that's what's causing the climate to change. Because my grandma moved from Minnesota, where there's like no green, to Washington, where everything is green, and she loved all the trees and stuff. And then our area of Seattle started being developed more, and so they were cutting down all her trees that she liked. And so she was watching the news and was hearing about global warming. She's like, it's because they're cutting down the trees. And I'm like, I wonder if that's someone just started this rumor and then ran with it and monetized it, and that's how we got to where we are. Because I mean, my grandma created her own theology based on it, you know?
Well, I think Al Gore, if he invented anything, definitely invented the monetizing of this kind of alarming, freak people out situation. If anybody has gotten something out of this, it's Al Gore. So I don't know. It's just, I think we need to be as good of stewards as we can be for this planet, but I also think it's really insane to assume that there isn't some sort of process that the Earth goes through in order to take care of these things, because it's not like methane doesn't happen naturally. You know, it's not, that's not a man-made product. Should we be mindful of the products that we make that could potentially harm the planet? Yes, obviously. But this reminds me, and this, I don't know if this is completely off topic, but as you all know, I love Chris Evans, even though I also hate him. And he was in a movie called Snowpiercer a few years ago, and it was essentially this, like, climate change freak out that we had screwed up the planet so much that all of the world's population that was left was like on this train that kept moving through the earth as it, you know, everything was frozen over and completely uninhabitable apparently, but we were all stuck on this train, and it was kind of like the class system of who was living in first class and who was living in steerage and all of that. But what kills me is they were making this huge point about how the Earth was warming and everyone was going to die because it was too hot. Well, then they decided to spray a chemical in the air that made the world freeze. So by freaking out that the world was getting hot, they sprayed something that actually made it freeze over. So I'm like, I'm not sure how that actually fixed anything. I don't know if that's actually supposed to make us feel smarter, like, oh, you know, is this supposed to be a warning that maybe we should let the planet take care of itself? Or a warning that we're just going to screw it up regardless of what we do?
Well, and you bring up a really good point, because my frustration with this whole global warming, climate change, blah, 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 is the knee-jerk reaction and the insanity that comes from it. It's not... Like, do I think that maybe there's a trend? Yes. Do I think that we need to freak out about it and monetize it and put all these crazy regulations in place? No, I don't. I think that man is very insignificant on Earth in climate. I think that we are significant in environment, like our immediate environment? Like, are we clear cutting things and making making things go extinct and upsetting the ecosystem? That's something I like to watch out for. That's something I like to be stewards of and make sure that we're not being ridiculous. But I really don't think that my recycling habits is going to affect long term whether the polar bears have enough ice. Unless I'm using those bottles to chuck ice at them. I don't know.
There are studies that show recycling is actually worse for the planet because of the amount of energy they have to put into repurposing these items.
That's ironic.
So it's really ironic. Plus, I'm like, you guys are like, in Seattle, they used to leave little notes on people's garbage bins saying, hey, you didn't do this correctly. And I'm like, that's your job then. Like, I'm basically doing your job for free before it's your job. So, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, especially I love it when they're like, oh, by the way, you need to wash this out. Okay, I'm supposed to be saving the planet, but I'm also using up all the water to clean out these containers because you don't want them to be sticky. Okay.
That never made any sense to me.
Yeah, but then the other thing is the school I went to, the high school I went to, we had one of the top environmental science programs in the state. We had solar panels on our roofs. We were the first school to have solar panels, blah, blah, blah. Our environmental science teacher would tell really inappropriate stories about how he liked to shower with his wife to save the planet. Like, it's just like inappropriate, right? So there's that angle of it. But then I have friends who, now that I've moved away, I'm like really contemplating, do I want to just remove them from my friends list? Because they will cry about maybe someday Antarctica won't exist for my children. And I'm like,
okay, so on that note, it was a really interesting thing. I thought this was interesting because we keep saying that, like, the left says that climate change is happening and, oh my gosh, this and this and this is going to happen and whatever. And, this is going to be underwater and we're never going to survive. Well, first of all, I think humans are a little bit smart. Like, we can kind of figure out, Seattle used to be completely underwater, but we figured out how to raise it up above so people weren't living in poop anymore. True story. But the warming, this is an interesting little side note to this. This is the warming. I'm quoting from the Federalist article. Warming may also extend the agricultural growing season in Canada, United States, Europe, Russia, China, and other places with long winters. So, like, we might need to give up the polar bears a little bit. Like, maybe we just need to save them like we do the pandas because they're completely helpless in the wilds. But maybe we need to just save the polar bears in a little isolated area and say, oh, but now we have 70 times the food production rate and it's awesome. I don't know. I just hate the alarmist attitude of global climate. I don't know, because it's not weather. Anyway.
Well, and then obviously I already said I'm like the gosh, why can't I think of his name? Conspiracy, Alex Jones. I'm like the Alex Jones of the show. And it's because I ate chili earlier, guys. But that's why he couldn't remember what grade his kids were in, because he ate chili for lunch. But but people have been saying that they've been pushing this global warming so hard because now that we're in a cooling trend, now they can say, oh, look, our policies worked, and that just gets them more control.
That's a good point. I mean, that's what I would do if I was the left. See, you recycled all these tin cans, and now the Earth is saying thank you by lowering its temperatures for you. Anyway,
I mean, I actually believe that Obama could heal the land and slow the rise of the ocean. So the left is just crazy, and they're not the party of science.
No, that's the other thing that just ticks me off. I was going to say the bad word. I'm trying to behave myself. Why are they going to call themselves a party of science? Because the science, and this is going to be a huge pet peeve, probably going to be a long-term theme in my life. The science is never settled. It just literally isn't. There are very few things that you can actually say. Like, I think the chemistry is subtle. Like, if you combine these ingredients, this reaction will happen. But the science, the whole point of science is discovery and finding out as you go along and making adjustments that way. You can't ever say, it's this, and it will be this for the next 3,000 years because I did a test one time.
Well, and they still call it the theory of gravity, even though, you know, we pretty much got a handle on it. But the science on this is settled. But anyway, what is settled is that our time is up for this segment, so we got to go into a break. We're coming back with common sense being suspended. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Bells of Liberty on Lanterns Radio Network. Our next topic definitely raised some hackles on us because we are educators ourselves, work with kids, and this just is so incredibly stupid. So, Jana, do you want to explain?
Yes, I would like to explain. A middle schooler in Trenton, Ohio, received a 10-day suspension from his middle school after liking a photo of a gun on Instagram. What's even more hilarious about this, even though it's not really, but what's even more hilarious about this is that it wasn't even a gun, it was an airsoft gun. So it's not like the kid was liking pictures of Glocks and Smith & Wessons, which, frankly, as a conservative and someone who believes strongly in the Second Amendment, it shouldn't matter. But the fact is that airsoft is a competitive sport like paintballing. It just uses different ammo. So if anything, he was liking it because of the fact that it is a competitive sport that I'm going to assume a lot of people are interested in the world. And if it were a paintball gun, would he still be in this situation or not? I don't know. But what's upsetting to me about this is not only is it's stupid because he liked a picture of an airsoft gun and they're freaking out over it, but the fact of the matter is what business is it of the schools to be looking into this kid's social media in the first place? I'm not sure how it was brought to their attention that he liked this, but the way the article reads, I'm taking it as it's like the school has people looking at social media of their students and responding to it in kind. And they got defensive when people are like, what are you doing? Because they're going to take any threat or any idea that a kid might be threatening the school and the safety of their kids seriously. I wish you could see me rolling my eyes right now because this is completely ridiculous. I don't know at what point liking a picture suddenly constituted a threat, but it doesn't if you have a brain in your head. So I can understand if someone brought this to the school's attention and said this child is liking pictures, is commenting, making actual threats like I'm going to go blow the school up or I'm going to go shoot somebody or I'm so mad I could just kill people. I could almost understand that if someone from the outside was bringing it in and saying, I saw this, maybe you should look into this as a potential threat to the school. But liking a picture is hardly that. And if it wasn't brought to their attention by somebody else, and even if it was, that's ridiculous. Use some common sense. But why are they even bothering? So why are they even looking at people's social media? Why is that their business? And at what point do we say you have overstepped your bounds? Because they of course were doubling down on it, saying that they were taking all the appropriate precautions to prevent another like Columbine or something. And the family is rightfully upset about it because this kid is getting a 10-day suspension for something as stupid as liking a picture on Instagram. So I guess for me, this is reason like 5 million why if I ever do have kids, I will be homeschooling. Because I feel like the authority of our school systems is overblown. Not only are they failing at teaching our children how to be successful human beings when it comes to like math and reading, they're also failing at using any common sense in responding to anything that the kids do outside of school. And we've seen so many instances of this, you know, a kid getting expelled or suspended because he chewed a Pop-Tart into the shape of a gun and was pointing it at people. Or a kid who was given suspension or you know, expelled from school because he was playing with a toy gun in his front yard while he was waiting for the bus. So we've seen lots of instances where these schools have taken really innocent, probably not that big of a deal situations and overblown them into something absolutely ridiculous.
Right. Well, I went and tried to find articles that would state where they found this information, because with Instagram, it's not like Facebook where it will say, hey, your friend liked this, and it'll move it to the top of your feed if one of your friends liked another post. That's not how Instagram works. So the fact that they saw that he liked a picture leads me to believe that either A, there was a student who saw it and brought it to the attention of the school as a means of bullying this kid, or the school is like really, really, really overstepping their bounds to a point that parents should be very concerned. My high school got to the point where they told parents that you no longer get to decide when an absence for your child is excused or not.
Oh, excuse me?
Exactly. Even if your student had a note from the doctor, the school could still say he didn't need to go or she didn't need to go at that time of day and say, we're not excusing them. And then their grade can suffer. They can only have a certain number of absences before they need to go to summer school. It's really invasive to the family. And we've gotten to this point where schools are almost bullying families on what is and what isn't acceptable. And it's almost to the point where if you're a parent and you own a gun, are you putting your child at risk of getting reprimanded by the school or getting penalized by the school? You know,
I wouldn't doubt it if it came to that.
Right. I mean, we see in the American or Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, you know, they wanted doctors to start asking just everyday citizens if they own guns. Why does my doctor need to know that? Unless I'm like some kind of like at a risk for mental illness, why is that a concern of my doctor? So again, you know, like I said, Instagram is not like Facebook where it will float to the top, you know, that you liked a certain post.
And even if it did, does that matter? I mean, I personally want to know, I really do want to know how they got the information. If it was someone coming to them and saying, I saw, and how innocuous. I mean, you have to be a really obnoxious parent or student to be like, whoop, this kid liked a picture of a gun. And maybe it was, and they saw it and they're like, oh, that's a real gun, because you know how many people are stupid and can't be bothered to actually determine is that a real gun or not. I mean, obviously, if it's like a police situation, there's not time to be like, is it plastic or is it real? I get that. But when it's like an Instagram photo, I think you have, you know, the Google available at your beck and call that you could potentially even just do a photo search or something and find a reasonable approximation and know, okay, that's not real. So, but you'd have to be really obnoxious. Yeah, you would have to be a real, and that's another thing. It doesn't matter if it's real. If the kid is not like going off his rocker and talking about how he wants to kill people or blow up the school, then there's no reason anybody should react to that. But I also know that I've worked with obnoxious parents who would freak out over something like that, a 7th grade boy should not be liking photos of anything that looks or resembles like a gun, you know, that would have that reaction. But I also wonder if they do have people at the school, because they do, as you've said, we have friends that have dealt with the situation with, you know, their kids have illnesses that have caused them to be out of school. And even if they're maintaining a 4.0 because they've hit the maximum number of days you can be gone, have gotten threatening letters from the school district saying, we're going to come after you because you are depriving your child of an education because they've been gone for so many days. So we've had those experiences where the school is becoming too powerful for what it is. And I almost wonder if they've got people who are intended to look for this sort of stuff, that they troll these social media websites, Facebook, and look for students that maybe don't use the privacy controls as well as some adults do, or Instagrams or Twitters or things like that, where, you know, they're watching for that kind of thing. And they're then bringing it to the administration to have a go at whoever they're talking about. I mean, they brought this kid down, and he says he was patted down and searched, and said because he liked a picture, then he was going to be suspended for 10 days or what have you because he liked this photo on Instagram. So they were treating him as though he had actually made a threat to the school. And to me, if I were a parent, I
would be pissed.
No, thank you. I will be reaching you by lawyer from now on. Thank you.
Well, when I had a kiddo who I worked with, he was on the autism spectrum, and for Halloween, he gave a girl he had a crush on a drawing that he had made, and it was the Grim Reaper. And she took it as a threat, and the school threatened to suspend my kiddo. And I'm like, excuse me? Like, I was like, I'm freaking proud of this kid because it is socially appropriate to do a picture of the Grim Reaper on Halloween. Like, he made that connection, you know? Like, I'm like, way to go, buddy, giving him a high five. And the school's like, we're going to suspend you for threatening another student. So the zero tolerance policy BS of schools, while yes, we do want our students to be protected, we don't want to see cyberbullying, we don't want to see like any kind of bullying. The job of the school is not to police our kids, and that's a parent's responsibility.
And there has to be an understanding that there's no possible way that a school is going to be able to prevent bullying 100%. And I think we've seen that. And this sort of leads into an article that we've all sort of talked about, and it's a little heartbreaking to talk about, where, you know, I feel like kids need to learn how to handle being bullied when it happens. And unfortunately, there was another story that came out, I think today, of a kid back in February. He was 8 years old who hung himself after being beaten by other kids in his school. And it feels like it was a cover-up by the school, because not only was there an administrator who found the kid when he was being beaten, there's video evidence of it happening, and they told his mom that he had simply fainted at school and did not tell her that he had been beaten by other students. And 2 days after this incident, the kid hung himself with his own necktie. So those are instances of failure on the school's part, because they were aware of what happened and did nothing. And yet we see instances like this where they're clearly overstepping their bounds and disciplining a student in a way that is inappropriate for what it was. But here we are, this little boy is 8 years old, shouldn't even know anything about suicide, and yet he takes his own life after dealing with something that they keep saying we have zero tolerance for, but do nothing about.
Right. I mean, it makes me want to never, ever, ever send any child I ever have to the public school system, because it just, you never know what you're going to get out of your school system. Are they going to be protective of your student, or are they going to be penalizing your student and trying to play your role in parenting?
Well, and then you have these teachers who I just glanced at a headline of an article. I was scrolling through some stuff, and the teachers were they were revealing the secrets that they had for grooming kids in their classes as sexual predators. And then I remember the video of the teacher who, or she was a helper or a teacher, I can't remember, but this kid, little 7 or 8 year old, who went to the bathroom, and she followed him to the bathroom and basically, or not followed him into the bathroom, but he came out of the bathroom and she confronted him and basically I can't remember if she lifted him up by his neck or but she lifted him up off the ground and was towering over him and basically just pushing him and stuff. And these kids, we have on the one side where these kids are told that if they even look at something that is not publicly or politically correct, that they are murderers or, whatever. That's the thoughts that they have in their head. And then you have on the other side, you have the teachers who are covering up crimes and committing these crimes. And it's like, I'm tired of getting told by the school system that I need to do things their way because their way is, I'm not going to say the word because we should keep this a family show, but it's that word.
Right. I think we all have frustrations with how the school system is treating students. Unfortunately, we have to leave it there. We're coming back with our final installation of the Constitutorial Article 1.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz. For great radio, get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Welcome back to the Bells of Liberty podcast on Lanterns Radio Network. It is officially time for our final segment in Article 1 of our constitutorials, which I've had a lot of fun doing. I feel like some of the information wasn't that new, some of it was new, and so that was really fun. But I think it's been really nice to see, I didn't plan it out this way doing this segment, but I feel like week after week, we've always had something relevant to the topic we were talking about come up in the news cycle. So the lie from leftists that the Constitution is archaic, that it's just an old piece of paper, or their new lies that it's, it's a quote unquote living document, and their definition of a living document is that they can change it to whatever they want it to say, which is not true. So this is Article 1, Section 10. And this section talks about a little bit on states' rights. Basically, they didn't want states to supersede federal level laws because we are the United States. So you can't necessarily have a law in one of the states that breaks the federal law.
Yeah.
As and initially James Madison wanted this included because there was a real fear of factions rising up. I feel like I'm talking about Divergent, but Theo James though. I'm just saying.
Well, don't like him too much because I'm sure his politics will just be as terrible as Chris Evans. So don't fall in love yet. Sorry.
It's inevitable.
I know. But anyway, James Madison was afraid of factions rising up. So he initially wanted all state laws to be subject to congressional consent. But the framers decided that was too, quote unquote, nationalistic, and it was unnecessarily broad to have every single law in every single state, especially now that there's 50 of them, to have to come to Congress to say, hey, we want to pass this law. Do you agree? So
Get that.
Basically, they went with more of a supremacy clause, which was realistic, meaning that states just can't create laws that are inconsistent with federal law. So obviously, we've seen this come about under the Obama administration, where they were telling states that they couldn't enforce the border, especially with DACA limiting what Border Patrol agents could do and what local law enforcement could do. that was a fight between federal and state power. And we see now with Donald Trump, he's a little more lax with the enforcement side of it. And just this week, which I think is really awesome news, there have been over 1,300 gang-related arrests made by ICE.
Saw that. That's really awesome.
You know, I mean, we started off with Obama's, you know, his presidency started off with Fast and Furious, which happened on the border because someone was killed. And then that really got the fight over what Border Patrol agents could or couldn't do, or even citizens of the United States, what they could or couldn't do when protecting their land. So it was a big mess. So one of the big sections in Section 10 is called the Compact Clause. And I'll read a gist of it for you. It says, under the Compact Clause, states may not, without the consent of Congress, keep troops or armies during times of peace. They may not enter into alliances nor compacts with foreign states, nor engage in war unless invaded. States may, however, organize an armed militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. So this includes the National Guard, which I think I've said it, but my husband's in the National Guard. So I tend to pay a little bit more attention to this. So basically, there's obviously congressional approval for National Guard units in every single state of the union. You see the National Guard usually deployed in natural disasters and or like riot situations, unfortunately. But they can be activated. They can be deployed. One of my friends in high school, his brother was in the National Guard, and he actually ended up dying in Afghanistan, which is why, you know, when my husband said he was joining the National Guard, I was like, it's not the safe way to join the Army. You know, there's no guarantee. But I had a friend who shared a meme, which I thought was pretty funny. And basically, it was a picture of a military convoy. And it's like just a friendly reminder to all you Alex Jones type people, AKA sometimes me. And he's like, this is the time of the year when the National Guard and reservists go for their annual 2-week training. So if you see military convoys out between now and August, it's not a military coup, and it's not the implementation of martial law. Our guys are just going to get additional training and maybe for some of them get back into shape a little bit. So, so that was funny for me. And it was like, just wave to them. They're friendly. So, yeah, that was pretty cute. I'm trying to see if I'm talking way too much. Yeah, I only have 3 more minutes. Okay. So back to the Compact Clause. So the backbone of it was this congressional consent wording, which has been taken to the Supreme Court many, many times. One of the most popular interstate compacts, which is really just an agreement or a contract between the states. I don't know what all of them, but the most popular one is the driver's license. So you have a driver's license in the state of Washington, you can still drive if you go on vacation to another state. That's just an example. So currently, there's one in progress that they're trying to put together, and it's on our favorite topic that we've talked about before on previous shows, and it's called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. Oh. So as of March 17th, it's been adopted by 10 states and the District of Columbia, but it still hasn't been approved by Congress to be an official interstate compact. But what they want to do, and obviously this goes against everything in my being because I've already argued against this, is instead of just doing winner-take-all electoral state votes, electoral college votes in a state. Sorry, I said that weird. They want whoever wins the popular vote in the state gets 100% of the electoral votes. Right.
Gonna go with no on that one.
It's a big no from me.
Well, if the election had been in October, we would have a different president.
Oh, man.
They actually started doing this. The first state to pass legislation in regards
California.
to this it was Maryland in 2007. And then this is the order that they all joined in: New Jersey, Illinois, Hawaii, Washington, Massachusetts, DC, Vermont, California, Rhode Island, and New York. And so those are all the states that have legislation that want to come together and band together as this is an agreement. States that currently have legislation pending, this isn't all of them, but the list was too long and I don't want to read it. Oregon, Idaho, Alaska, Texas, Nevada, Georgia, Missouri. So those are all states that are contemplating doing this, which is a little scary for me that Texas is on that list.
Yeah.
And obviously, you can go back and listen to our past podcasts on what we think is the best way to, if we're going to change at all the voting process, the best would be to make electoral votes proportional to the vote to the counties. So, so that pretty much wraps up Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution. Next week, we're going to move on to Article 2. But I'm already up against the clock, guys, so we're going to have to bring it back with Ring the Bell next segment. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Bells of Liberty. This is our final and favorite segment, Ring the Bell. Okay, so last week we had some outrageous topics and some very cute topics. So I'm going to start off with a cute one. Brigadier Penguin, we took a poll on Twitter. Would you take orders from a penguin? 80% of you chose correctly and said you would follow him to the death. And then 20% of you kind of weirded me out and said, don't ask, don't tell. It's a little weird for me. And then moving along, my topic was about that FBI translator who went and married a guy in ISIS. And we were asking you what the next ISIS dating names would be. And the winner was Me Plus You Equals Kaboom, which got 56% of the votes. Coming in second was Okay ISIS with 33% of the vote. And 11% said Plenty of Terrorists, which I feel like Plenty of Fish should actually already be called that. And when we get to my topic, you might agree with me. And then Courtney brought us a story about a man who paid lots and lots of money to become an elf. And we asked if you would do that. 69% of you said, nah, I'm cool with being a human. 23% said you would rather be a unicorn. And 8% of you said you'd do it, but only if your name was Legolas. Which, and you wanted to look more like Orlando Bloom. Okay. But
it didn't specify that, okay?
It didn't specify that, but that's where I will say it's okay if you do it. And let's see. We have brand new Ring the Bells for you guys this week. So, Jana, do you want to start it off?
Sure. So, people probably know that Dove likes to run this Real Beauty campaign with their ads and in general, where they try to encourage people to be accepting of all shapes and sizes and, you know, looks and so on and so forth, so that everybody has a little bit of a boost of confidence that, you know, obviously beauty is not any particular look or style or shape. And they've decided that to endorse this even further, that they're going to be releasing 6 different bottles to mimic the body shapes that we see in the world. So pear-shaped, apple-shaped, thin, skinny, fat, whatever. There's going to be 6 limited edition bottles, so you better be watching your shelves for this, because I know you'll want to collect all of those to use with their products and post it out, post it out there and really feel confident in yourself that you have a body wash bottle that is shaped like you. Anyway, the response has been pretty 50-50. Some people really love it. Obviously, there's going to be people who think that's awesome because body positivity is a big thing these days. Some think it's stupid, which I am one of those people. But the funny part is that the Twitter responses have been pretty hilarious. People have been responding saying, well, you know, Dove is a little late to the party, but I've already found a body wash that matches my natural curves. And they're posting pictures of Mrs. Butterworth. Some people are like, no thanks. I look more like a minion. And posting pictures of shampoo bottles shaped like minions, or, you know, some say, little does Dove know, I've already got a bottle that suits my body type too, and it's the bear-shaped honey container. So lots of funny responses to it that, you know, obviously Dove probably didn't take into account that people's reactions would be, because obviously they don't have a sense of humor. But I did find it funny that, you know, of all the things that they could have been doing to campaign for, they're like, you know what we need? Bottles shaped like fat people.
I was going to say, I only
people.
buy the skinny one because I was like, does it make you skinny? Like, this body wash is going to make you thin. I'm like, heck yes, I'm going to buy that.
Yes, that's kind of what I would be
And then you
for.
find out you've been bamboozled.
Exactly. Heckin' Dove. Heckin' bamboozled by Dove again. So, yeah, I'm like, I don't need that because I already have a hard enough time finding things that fit. So last thing I need is a bottle that looks like me that also doesn't fit on the shelf in my shower. So thanks, Dove. That's really...
I find it really funny that they're limited edition. Like, are people going to be collecting these things and saving them? Like, and this, honey, was my collection of Dove bottles, limited edition from 2017. Okay, Grandma, that's awesome.
This is my investment for the future. It's going to be worth something.
Oh
Oh
my gosh. Well, speaking of ridiculous, my story is so stupid. I always, I love you ladies, but my motto in life is always that women are stupid. And this story seems to prove my theory.
Backhanded compliment there. I'm kind of stinging a little.
She tried. That's my motto. She tried.
I love you, but you're stupid.
So, this woman, she was on Match.com. Her name's Emily Thompson. So I'm just going to put her name on blast. She divorced 17 years ago and she's getting lonely. So she joined Match.com in January. She met and started talking to this dude who said he was an army man serving in special forces and he was in Cairo. And then they started talking and he said that he was about to be stationed at Fort Hood, but he got caught up at customs and needed some money, which she gave him. I think she gave him like $1,000, but unfortunately it was a scam and the IP address was based in Africa. And they ended up draining her entire savings account up to $131,000. So, one, this is what I want to tell you. So, one, if you are ever on a dating site and there is a man who says he is stationed overseas, he's looking for some sexting action, and that's about it. to never give anyone money that you don't know. Even people I do know.
Yeah, I was
like,
going to
I'm
say,
not giving money.
even if you're related to them, just don't do it. It's not worth the aggravation.
You know, the funniest part is she's like, I think that I'm a pretty intelligent person. I'm like, survey says that was wrong.
The results say that was a lie.
Yeah.
We don't need Maury-Povich to know this.
Right. So Maury doesn't need to tell us. But actually, this is actually a widespread problem. And someone in my family, I'm not going to say what side of family, fell for a similar scam. And even after we repeatedly told her that the rank that the guy was using did not exist,
oh my gosh,
tried to give him some money and he ended up draining her account as well. So this one kind of touched home. Well, not too close to my home, but you know, I mean, I'd heard that it had happened before. So I just want people to know that's my PSA on dating sites, ladies. If you're lonely, just don't send anyone money. Simple as that. Courtney,
wow.
Follow that up.
Or maybe if you're lonely, just send a little bit of money and just walk away from it. Just like, I'm lonely, here's $5, see you later. Like, you know, that's, I don't know.
I am not about to buy somebody's love, okay? That's not acceptable.
All right. Well, moving along, my story that I thought was, Chris Pratt had to apologize to the deaf community because he told his fans that they needed to turn the volume up and not just read the subtitles. And that's offended a bunch of people.
In a video that was probably directed by somebody else. Because it was an advertisement for Guardians of the Galaxy. So I sincerely doubt that Chris Pratt actually had the idea to say that.
I don't know, but it brings up the bigger topic for me. When do we stop apologizing?
Go after Chris Pratt because he's such a nice guy. He is so nice. And
he's not liberal.
Right. Good Chris Pratt news this week. He's floated around that Burt Macklin should be that new FBI director. And if you don't watch Parks and Rec, Burt Macklin is Andy Dwyer's dream job. Alter ego, as well as Johnny Karate. So that was hilarious. And I'm just like, Chris Pratt is the best. I just love Chris Pratt so much.
He is rather adorable, and he's smart, so makes him even more adorable.
And he's now.
He's from Washington. Like, we don't really have that many people from Washington that we can be proud of. And he's one. Like, I'm so proud of him.
Something there. I think that's why we're exceptionally happy. It's like, oh my gosh, some awesome something came from Washington State. Yes, God.
We don't just grow liberals, apparently. We also grow Chris Pratt. But that, we're going to have to leave it there, ladies. Polls will be on our Twitter related to this. Somehow we're going to make you admit that Chris Pratt is the most handsome man and amazing person who's ever lived. Jana, do you want to tell people where they can find us?
We'll have to make a limited edition poll for Chris Pratt and his adorableness. So anyway, if you are interested, you can join us for our weekly podcast party on Twitter at Bells of Liberty, where you can vote on our latest polls regarding our Ring the Bell stories, and you can interact with us because who doesn't want to do that? You can follow us on Facebook, The Bells of Liberty, and if you miss our show when it drops and can't make it to the party, which boo on you, all of our previous shows are available on Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes, and Google Play Music. Send us some tweets on Saturday when our show drops at 6 p.m. Eastern Time.
Yeah, it's really fun talking to all of you, so get on that.
Yeah, join
us.
All
the cool kids do it.
Well, Courtney comes occasionally, so I don't know about that, but the rest of the cool kids show up and have a good time. So feel free to join us, and we will talk to you next week.
See ya.
До свидания.
Oh man, the Russian spy is here. Thanks for listening to the Bells of Liberty podcast. Want to listen to more sassy content? All shows are available free on demand on Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes, and Google Play Music. Have something to say? You can find us on Twitter @Bells of Liberty, and also on Facebook, www.facebook.com/The Bells of Liberty. And as always, keep calm and ring on.